Have you ever noticed how stress creeps in quietly? It doesn't always crash down on you in a single dramatic moment. Sometimes it slips in disguised as duty, disguised as urgency, disguised as ambition. You think you're in control, but then your chest feels heavy, your mind races, and you realize you've been moving through life not on energy, but on tension. For years, that was me. I didn't even call it stress, I called it normal. The deadlines, the conflicts, the endless demands, it all just blended into the background hum of life. But over time, that normal chipped away at me. My body was present, but my peace was gone. And deep down, I knew this couldn't be the only way to live. That's when I found Stoicism. Not as dusty words carved in stone, but as a living practice. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, men who faced war, exile, betrayal, even slavery, and still wrote words that sound like they were written for us today. Their wisdom wasn't about escaping stress, but about reshaping how we meet it. And through them, I began learning shifts in how I think, how I see, how I respond. They didn't just change my thoughts, they changed my life. The first realization that shook me was how much of my suffering came from fighting battles I could never win. I spent hours worrying about what people thought of me, what might go wrong tomorrow, or how I could fix things I had no power over. It was like trying to hold back the tide with my bare hands. The more I tried to control what I couldn't, the heavier stress became. Epictetus said some things are in our control and others are not. Obvious words, but words I ignored. Think about it. How much time do we spend mentally replaying an argument we can't undo, or catastrophizing about a future we can't predict? Every minute of that rumination is energy stolen from what we actually can do in the present. I didn't see it at the time, but I was pouring fuel into fires that weren't even mine to fight. It wasn't until I started asking myself one question, is this mine to carry, that the weight began to shift. When the answer was no, I let it go. Not out of apathy, but out of respect for my own limits. And that small act of release felt like unclenching a fist I'd kept tight for years. My energy stopped scattering across every wave I couldn't calm. It returned to where it belonged. My choices, my actions, my words. Control isn't freedom. Acceptance is. The next shift came when I stopped seeing stress as an enemy to escape. For so long, I thought stress meant I was failing. If I felt it, it meant I wasn't strong enough, disciplined enough, organized enough. But what if stress wasn't punishment at all? Marcus Aurelius wrote that the impediment to action advances action, that what stands in the way becomes the way. I used to read that like philosophy. Then I lived it. A tough conversation at work stopped being a nightmare. It became practice in patience. An unexpected bill wasn't a cosmic punishment. It was practice in resourcefulness. A sleepless night wasn't proof that I was broken. It was practice in endurance. Every obstacle was training, and training changes you. That doesn't make it easy, but it makes it meaningful. And meaning is stronger than comfort. Once I framed stress as training, it stopped crushing me. It started shaping me. Another realization was about stillness. I used to treat stillness like weakness. I thought the cure for stress was more effort, more hours, more hustle, more lists, more caffeine. But all that did was tighten the knot. The harder I ran, the more tangled I became. Then I tried something embarrassingly small. I sat still for 10 minutes in the morning. No phone, no noise, no planning, just breath. At first, it felt pointless. Then I noticed something. The silence wasn't empty. It was grounding. It became a reset, a sharpening, a pause that gave me space to act instead of react. Seneca wrote that the mind must be given relaxation. It will rise sharper after a break. And he was right. Stillness didn't erase stress, but it gave me space to carry it differently. Instead of drowning in noise, I created clarity. Instead of sprinting mindlessly, I stepped deliberately. I realized stillness isn't absence of stress. It's a weapon against it. A deeper change came when I saw how much of my stress was tangled up with ego. I tied my worth to outcomes. If I failed, I wasn't just disappointed. I felt like a failure. If I succeeded, I felt pressure to protect it, to repeat it, to never let it slip. My identity was hostage to results, and results are never fully ours. But outcomes are external. My worth is internal. When I began to detach who I am from what happens, I felt a freedom I hadn't known before. I could fail without being broken. I could succeed without being chained. Wins and losses became information, not judgment. Stress didn't vanish, but it stopped poisoning who I was. This detachment felt like taking a heavy mask off after years of wearing it. The world didn't change, but the weight lifted. I was no longer performing for validation. I was simply acting in line with my values and letting outcomes fall where they may. And that's a kind of peace no achievement can give you. Then came an even stranger practice, stepping into discomfort on purpose. At first, it made no sense. Why would I choose the very thing I was trying to reduce? But the Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort, fasting, cold simplicity, not as punishment, but as preparation. Seneca asked his students to strip back their comforts for a few days, and then ask, "Is this what I feared?" I tried it. Simple meals, leaving my phone behind, taking the harder, slower path when an easier one was available. And what I found was surprising. When you choose discomfort willingly, life's involuntary discomfort loses its bite. Stress shrinks when you've already proven to yourself you can handle less. It builds resilience, and more than that, it builds gratitude. The comforts I once ignored felt like luxuries again. Hot food, a warm bed, silence. Gratitude, I learned, is the strongest antidote to stress. Another shift came from something most people avoid thinking about: mortality. At first, it felt harsh, even depressing. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you could leave life right now. But over time, that thought became liberating. Because nothing shrinks stress like seeing it in the context of death. That email I panicked over, meaningless in the big picture. That awkward conversation I replayed, fleeting. Even my biggest ambitions will soon be dust. Remembering death didn't make me despair. It made me focus. It reminded me not to waste time on petty worries. If life is fragile, why hand it over to stress? When you live with mortality in mind, every day feels sharper, more vivid. You don't obsess over everything. You prioritize what matters. You love harder. You let go faster. You stop waiting for peace to appear and start creating it now. Death isn't the enemy. Forgetting you're alive is. And maybe the most profound shift was learning to stop resisting the natural flow of life. For years, I demanded reality match my script. I wasted energy wishing things were different, forcing outcomes, trying to bend people and situations into shapes they would never fit. But life has its own rhythm. People leave. Seasons change. Fortune shifts. To fight this is to fight the nature of existence itself. The Stoics called it living in accord with nature. Not nature as in trees and rivers, but nature as in reality. Meeting life as it is, not as you demand it to be. Like a sailor adjusting his sails to the wind, working with it, not against it. That doesn't mean passive resignation. It means harmony. It means moving with life, not exhausting yourself against it. And when I began doing this, stress transformed. The storm was still there, but I wasn't fighting it blindly anymore. I had learned how to sail through it. All of these shifts didn't erase stress. Nothing can. Stress is part of being alive, but they changed how I meet it. Instead of drowning, I learned to stand. Instead of being defined by it, I learned to be refined through it. Acceptance of what I cannot control. Seeing obstacles as training. Protecting stillness. Detaching ego. Choosing discomfort before it chooses me. Remembering life is short. Living in harmony with reality as it is, not as I demand it to be. They're not ideas you just think about once. They're practices. And every time I return to them, stress loses its grip a little more, and strength takes its place. Peace isn't found by waiting for life to calm down. Peace is built in the middle of the noise. Once you realize that, stress stops being the enemy. It becomes the teacher. So the next time you feel the storm rising, remember this: you don't need to wait for peace to appear. You can create it. Not by controlling the world, but by mastering how you move through it. That's the Stoic way, and it's a way worth walking.